Right, well, thank you very much indeed. It's a very great pleasure to be back at Reuters, and let me thank Reuters and the Reuters Institute for giving me the opportunity to say these words to you today. I like that bit about the experience I've had over 10 years of managing the media, for better or for worse. I think it began as one, slightly ended as the other, but nonetheless. It's very good to come along and share these reflections with you today. And the purpose of the series of speeches that I've given over the past year has been deliberately reflective, to get beyond the immediate headlines or issues of the day and contemplate in a broader perspective the effect of a changing world on the issues of the future. And this speech, which is on the challenge of the changing nature of communication, on politics and the media, is from the same reflective perspective. I should say some preliminaries at the outset. This is not my response to the latest whacking from bits of the media. It's not a whinge about how unfair it all is. As I always say, it's an immense privilege to do this job, and if the worst that happens is harsh media coverage, it's a small price to pay. And anyway, like it or not, and some do and some don't, I've won 3 elections and I'm still standing as I leave office. So this speech is not a complaint, it's an argument. Also, as a result of being at the top of the greasy poll for 13 years, 10 of them as Prime Minister, my life and my work as Prime Minister and its interaction with the world of communication, I think gives me pretty deep experience, again, for better or worse. Let me also say categorically that a free media is a vital part of a free society. You only need to look at where such a free media is absent to know this truth. But it is also part of freedom to be able to comment on the media. It is a complete right to be free, and I, like anyone else, have a complete right to speak. My principal reflection, however, is not about blaming anyone. It is that the relationship between politics, public life and the media is changing as a result of the changing context of communication in which we all operate. No one is at fault. This change is a fact, but it is my view that the effect of this change is seriously adverse to the way public life is conducted, and that we need, at the least, a proper and considered debate about how we manage the future, in which it is in all our interests that the public is properly and accurately informed. They, after all, are the priority, and they are not well served by the current state of affairs. In the analysis I'm about to make, I first acknowledge my own complicity. We paid inordinate attention in the early days of New Labour to courting, assuaging and persuading the media. In our own defence, after 18 years of opposition and the, at times, ferocious hostility of parts of the media, it was hard to see any alternative. But such an attitude ran the risk of fueling the trends in communication that I'm about to question. It's also, incidentally, hard for the public to know the facts, even when they are subject to the most minute scrutiny, if those facts arise out of issues of profound controversy, as the Hutton inquiry showed. Along with 3 other inquiries, was a 6-month investigation in which I, as Prime Minister, and other senior ministers and officials faced unprecedented public questioning and scrutiny, the one the critics wanted. But it was an example of being held to account, not avoiding it. Anyway, leave that to one side. And in none of this, also, do I ignore the fact that this relationship has always been fraught. From Stanley Baldwin's statement about power without responsibility and being the prerogative of the harlot throughout the ages, back to the often extraordinarily brutal treatment, if you've ever read it, meted out to Gladstone and Disraeli, through to Harold Wilson's complaints of the 60s. The relations between politics and the media are, and are by necessity, difficult. It's as it should be. The question is it qualitatively and quantitatively different today? And I think yes, so that is my starting point. However, why is that? Because the objective circumstances in which the world of communications operate today are radically altered. The media world, like everything else, is becoming more fragmented, more diverse, and above all transformed by technology. The main BBC and ITN bulletins used to have audiences of 8, even 10 million. Today the average is half that. At the same time, there are rolling 24-hour news programs that cover events as they unfold. In the early 1980s, there were 3 TV stations broadcasting in the UK. Today there are hundreds. In 1995, over 200 TV shows had audiences of over 15 million. Today there's almost none. Newspapers fight for a share of a shrinking market. Many are now read online, not the next day. Internet advertising has overtaken newspaper ads. And there are roughly 70 million blogs in existence, so I'm told, with around 120,000 being created every day. In particular, younger people will less and less get their news from traditional outlets. But in addition to that, the forms of communication are merging and interchanging. The BBC website is crucial to the modern BBC. Papers have podcasts and written material on the web. News is becoming increasingly a free good provided online without charge. Realistically, these trends aren't going to do anything other than intensify in the years to come. Now, these changes are better known to many of you than to me, and they're obvious. Less obvious is their effect. The news schedule is now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it moves in real time. Papers don't give you up-to-date news. That's already out there. They have to break stories, try to lead the schedules, or they give a commentary. And it all happens with outstanding speed. When I fought the 1997 election just 10 years ago, we could take an issue a day. At the last election, 2005, we had to have one in the morning, another for the afternoon, and by the evening the agenda had moved on entirely. You have to respond to stories also in real time. Frequently the problem is as much assembling the facts as giving them. Make a mistake and you quickly transfer from drama into crisis. In the 1960s, believe it or not, the government would sometimes, if there was a serious issue, have a cabinet meeting that would last over 2 days. It would be laughable to think you could do that now without the heavens falling in before lunch on the first day. Things also harden within minutes. I mean, you can't let speculation stay out there for longer than an instant. And I'm going to say something that few people in public life will say, but most know is absolutely true. A vast aspect of our jobs today, outside of the really major decisions, as big as anything else, is coping with the media. Its sheer scale, weight, and constant hyperactivity. At points, it literally overwhelms. Talk to senior people in virtually any walk of life today, business, military, public services, sport, even charities and voluntary organizations, and they will tell you the same. People don't speak about it because in the main they are afraid to, but it is true nonetheless. And those who have been around long enough will also say it has changed significantly in the past years. The danger, though, is that we then commit the same mistake as the media often do with us. It's the fault of bad people. My point is that it's not the people that's changed. It's the context within which they work. For example, we devote reams of space now to debating why there is so much cynicism about politics and public life. And in this, the politicians are obliged to go into self-flagellation, admitting it's all our fault. Actually, not to have a proper press operation nowadays is like asking a batsman to face bodyline bowling without pads or headgear. And believe it or not, most politicians come into public life with a desire to serve and by and large try to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. My view, my reflection after 10 years is that the real reason for this cynicism is precisely the way politics and the media today interact. We in the world of politics, because we're worried about saying this, play along with the notion that we are the sole source of responsibility. So, for example, in my own case, I introduced first lobby briefings on the record, then published the minutes, then gave monthly press conferences, then freedom of information, then became the first Prime Minister to go to the Select Committee's chairman's session, and so on. None of it to any avail, not because these things aren't right, but because they don't deal with the central issue, which is how politics is reported.